Hi.
Annie.
Are you are you spent today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to eat my I haven't eaten all day, but
I
I'll
have
cycle.
I have a taco right here, which I don't think I'm gonna get to now.
Well, I have a pork chop and a salad.
There you go. That's not bad.
Just remember to just send me the budget.
I don't know that David sent it to me. Is he out of commission already tonight?
Well, how did it get on the list?
That's a directed proxy.
Hi, John.
How are you, Annie?
Well, at this point tonight, I think we better get together to open that big old bottle of whatever you sent me here.
How can Barbie get one email and not the other one?
It doesn't make any sense.
How did Carolyn Hartsfield, the same thing happen?
Oh, I have her directed proxy for you, Annie.
I mean,
yes, that's fine. I don't know.
You can't get just one. Something's going on there.
Okay, so we have about 10 people in the waiting room. Heather texted me. She's going to be late. I know that Jen is not feeling well. But she hasn't told me that she's not going to be on. I have the three of us highlight it, and then I can highlight people as they speak. I have the chat window open, participants open, and my plan is just to kind of quickly introduce what we're talking about, try to gauge what people want to talk about, and then try to guide the conversation. And I'd appreciate if the two of you and whatever other board members join, just pipe in whenever.
I know that I know your mom and Sarah also they're up at her house and joining together.
Okay, great.
All I know is I have all my supplies.
I can probably help you late tomorrow. I don't know how late you guys are going till, Ann, but I could help. I won't be down till probably 8:30 or so. I don't know if that's.
No. All I need is and we can discuss it. I need to get the budget ballot. That's all I need, and I can start in the morning.
The budget,
but I get you. I know
nothing anyway.
All right, it's 7:00, so I'm going to let everyone in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. It's 7:00. Welcome to our, I'd say, first official, but second town hall meeting. I expect that people will join over the next 5 to 10 minutes and maybe throughout the hour. For those of you who didn't join last time, we didn't have to hit mute all. So if you have background noise, just try to mute yourself. If anyone has concerns or things they definitely want to talk about, these first 5 or 10 minutes, I thought that we could, anyone could just raise your hand. If you want to know how to raise your hand, I don't know how, because I'm the host, but I think it's in chat or maybe something like that. Also there's the chat box. If there's a question you want to ask, you can throw it in there, or if there's a lull in the conversation, just speak up, and I'll try to put your video up on the screen for people to see. And then, if you're talking, just introduce yourself. Not everyone knows each other, and we'll get started. So this weekend we have 2 voting meetings. We have a budget meeting, the first annual budget meeting. This is now in our bylaws. So the 3rd Saturday of every April from now until the bylaws change, the members vote to approve the budget, which is actually a vote to the budget passes unless it's voted down by a majority of the votes cast. At 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, we have a vote to vote on 4 proposed bylaw amendments. And we'll go over those tonight as well and answer any questions on or surrounding those. If there's time, we can also discuss all the good stuff that's to come. You know, the fun stuff for the summer, concerns, questions, things people are excited about, ideas you may have, things you want to volunteer for. So yeah, feel free to do that. And yeah, if you have people talking in your background, please just mute yourself. I'm going to try not to be overzealous with the mute button tonight.
Okay. How do you put mute in?
If you kind of mouse over the screen, you should see some options in the bottom left. Stop video and mute. If you click on that, the mute will turn your microphone off. If you want to speak, you just click on it again to turn it back on.
Oh, there you go.
All right, we have 17, 18 people in the meeting. We're gonna wait a couple minutes, but does anyone, have any comments or anything they want to talk about? Say hello.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Charles, we're recording this, yes?
We are recording this, yes, and
Thank
I can
you.
post it to YouTube as well.
I'm just saying hi.
Right. So we have 2 other board members on. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm John King. I'm the vice president.
Annie, you're muted.
Sorry. Annie Darling, financial secretary.
Okay. And then we have Heather Toyin, who's the past president. We have Jennifer Godin, who is the recording secretary, and we have David Lewis, who is the treasurer. Yeah, I'm not sure if and when the other 3 will be joining us, but it's almost 7:05. So I would say if anyone wants to start us off, I would say the logical first place to start would be if there are any questions on the budget, the process, the voting. I've posted a voting procedures and guidelines document up on the website. I feel like I've sent too many emails. I apologize for that. The fall survey said people wanted 1 email a month in the off season, and it's been a little bit more than that. But hopefully we're almost through the woods. I know this has been new for everyone, but thank you to everyone for participating and sending your input and your letters and watching the YouTube videos and going through all of this. It really does involve everyone, and it seems like a lot, but it's all for a common good that we all love. So with that, does anyone have any questions on the budget meeting? The budget
It
itself?
looks like Pat has a question.
Pat?
Yep, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
You
Hi,
can
Pat.
hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I have a question about the capital expenses. One of the things I want to know is all the money that's in there, is that just being held for possible improvements and we get a right to vote on these improvements? Or if we pass the budget, they're in no matter what? That's never been explained clearly for the fence and the electric gate and, all the things that are in there. If we pass that budget, does that mean that we do not vote as members, whether we would like that or not? I can't vote for the budget until I get that clarification.
I ditto that.
I
Bingo.
would like to make a comment. It's Annie. And I think that there are recommendations in the budget, but nothing will ever be done unless the membership is yay or nay for it. So be assured that, we're not going to go ahead and do certain things unless the membership is, of course, amiable to it.
Is there a cost threshold for that? I mean, if it's a $10 repair, it doesn't have to be voted, but where does the line get drawn?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that the budget itself is voting to approve the dollars allocated to everything in it and described in it. We do have a new financial control policy, which was approved in the fall by the board. And I'm trying to pull it up right now. That's what you see me doing over here. And I believe the dollar threshold is $1,200, where everything over and above that requires 3 proposals and 3 prices, and for the board to vote on it. But to answer Pat's question, if this budget is approved by the membership, it presupposes, I believe, that there won't be subsequent votes on capital items.
There won't be.
I don't think so. Annie and John, do you understand it differently? So I think that the board would have to follow the financial control policy, which allows for us to get three prices, consider and make sure they're apples to apples, and make a
Of
decision
course.
on the best one. But approval of
Of
this
course.
budget, I think, is an approval of the entirety of the budget.
Okay.
Well,
That sheds a different light.
Yes, it
certainly
does.
does. And I believe that the money's appropriated for certain, and I may be not speaking, well, I'm going to say, I hope I'm speaking correctly, is that there are certain capital items that we would like to go forward. Yes, we have to get the bids, but I also believe that there cannot be any going forwards. Let's take the fence. And that's always been a controversial subject, that the population, the membership has got to vote yay or nay. I mean, we're looking at, the budget's looking at the monetary value, but I don't believe the budget is looking at, well, if we do this, it's going to be a go, that, yeah, automatically we do this.
Well,
That may sound confusing,
Yes. yes.
which I certainly understand, but we haven't made any decisions. We are only in the process of getting bids on these certain items.
Okay, so I have the budget pulled up, and if anyone has the full budget pulled up, or even the abridged, the capital expenditures are on page 14 of the PDF. There's a total of $21,450 of capital expenditures in the budget, and those are electric trenching for a possible future gate, updated dock road, bridge and engineering load study, a bridge replacement study, a survey of the rocks to determine where the mean high tide line is, and a purchase of a new gate to potentially be automated in the future. So those are 5 items. They're all over $1,200. So they would definitely be subject to the financial control policy.
Could you?
And as far as another membership vote, I don't know, that is something that isn't in the bylaws. I think that the bylaws used to say that members vote on capital expenses. Now members vote on a budget. I will say that, all the power of the association originates from the membership. And I'm going to put Pat's hand down. And
Oh, no, it's up.
Oh, it's still up. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. You can put it back up then. All the power of the membership originates from the members. The members elect the board, and the board is meant to carry out the best interests and the wishes of the membership. Part of that is that any group of members is within their right to call a meeting for any reason. I believe the number is 15 members. So there is always that option if there's something that people either want or don't want or need to have a forum on. Typically, a meeting is called with the intention of voting on something. So for or against. Let's see.
Wow.
Dan Tarbo had a question up there. I don't know if you saw that as well. I could answer that if you wanted to.
Yeah, please, John.
Dan's question was basically that in the budget, there is only one proposal for many items.
Right.
And he's asking if we will be getting multiple quotes. In the budget itself, we only put in the lowest quote that we received at the time. Sometimes we got 3 quotes. Sometimes we only got 1 or 2 because we were waiting for the third one, and we didn't have it in time before the budget was prepared. But before any purchases would be made, we would have at least 3 quotes to compare it. So we put up 1 quote already, and if the other 2 came in lower, we'd be using one of the lower quotes, most likely.
May I ask, Dan to weigh in on what were the items that he's in the budget there was only one proposal for?
Well, all of them. Basically,
There's a few that they're only one.
we put in the lowest bid.
Okay,
proposal.
yes, okay.
I think that the beach raking, there might be 2 email communications between David or the maintenance committee and the contractor. or the
Yeah.
Contractors, but for the most part, in the 61 pages of exhibits, it's just one contract per expense. And and let me know if I'm wrong, but the board, prior to a budget being approved, has not gone through that process of approving any of these expenses officially. So these are budgeted amounts. Pat, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I'm sorry, I can't see if my hand's there, so I'm glad you can see it.
Yes, it is.
Operate this yet, but will we be aware of the fact that you are even contemplating or seriously thinking, I don't want to find out after the fact that the board has voted to go ahead with some of these things that are extremely expensive and also extremely controversial. So, I know the fence going across the rocks is super controversial. And I understand both sides of that. And and I know we've had one meeting after another, but from what I'm understanding, the board can make the decision if they deem it necessary to do it. And we would have to gather a group of people to hold a meeting in opposition to that. Am I right?
Well, so, you brought up a fence on the
That's
rocks.
one, right? That's one.
There is no fence on the rocks in the budget.
Okay,
The item in the budget, the $1,800, is a coastal jurisdiction survey. So whether or
Okay.
not we want a fence ever, this is something we need to do. And the rule is that we need to be at least 2 feet, 1 inch, more than 2 feet from the mean high tide line. So that mean high tide line is an elevation. A surveyor would come, draw that line for us, and then draw another line 2 feet in from that. And then we could visually see where we are allowed to build a fence.
If we're allowed to build a fence at all.
If we're allowed
Okay.
to build a fence.
And
All right.
let me, what I'd like to add to that is we're under the auspices of the state. So all of this has got to be okayed. And they're really the ones that give the go ahead. And I don't believe we're anywhere near getting close to that right now.
I mean, I could probably go through a little bit of each of those capital expenditures anyway.
Yeah.
Just so we have a little bit of knowledge. The first one was the electric service trench.
Mhm.
The reason we have that on this year is talk that the state DEP is going to be repaving parking lot this summer. And if they do that repaving, there'll be no chance of ever running electricity to the beach for a minimum of 5 years. We're just going to put the trench in so that if we ever in the future needed electricity out there, whether it would be for a gate or for any other issue, we would at least have the conduit underneath the roadway for that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The second one on the item is the updated Dock Road Bridge engineering. We had a study done, it was over 10 years ago.
I think
At that
2008.
time, the engineer recommended that we basically redo a certification every couple years because of the age of the bridge to make sure that it was suitable to have traffic going over it. We thought we'd put that in there now, just because we haven't had a analysis done in quite a few years. I don't remember. Do you remember what year it was actually done in, Charlie?
2008.
I think it's 2008.
2008. So we're looking at 13 years ago that was done. Then we also were getting a proposal from them to do the analysis of the bridge, what the bridge replacement would be if it needed to be replaced. And that would determine
I have
if
a
the money
question
that we-
regarding the bridge. I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Why-
is that?
Whose
Can we let
responsibility
John
would it be?
finish? Please let John
Well,
finish.
it's
No.
related to the bridge, Ann.
All
go
right,
ahead.
all right, okay.
So related to the bridge, is it our responsibility to replace or repair the bridge?
From what we understand, which we're doing some research on that now, the bridge is owned by Waterford Association, and we have granted an easement to the state to use it, but we are still the owner of that bridge. We are trying to find out if the state would partake in the replacement cost. And that was the reason we were gonna do a replacement cost to find out what the cost would be, was to determine if the money that we have in savings that has been set aside for that is adequate enough.
Okay, thank you.
The next issue was, well, basically, the
John,
coastal,
I can actually add a little bit to that. I was able to start collecting some old documents. Earl Tarbell was president back in the 1998 range, and he sent over a bunch of documents recently, which I've started going through. And I think in the past there have been conversations about if the easement is given with no charge, is the state partially liable? So I do know that there have been talks about setting up a conversation between the town, the state, and members of our board to really get a better handle on, get something in writing about whose responsibility that is. We've also received some really good input from some of our members who have experience with issues like this. I would encourage anyone else who has experience to weigh in, and if they want to be involved in that or help with that, I think that could be valuable. I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
no, that's okay. And I think basically, that takes care of the bridge replacement. Next was the coastal jurisdiction survey, was before any type of offense could ever be placed on the rocks or even along our property up there. We'd have to have that coastal jurisdiction survey done to determine what is actually feasible. And then also in regard to that, before a fence could actually even be done, even if the members vote to put a fence up, we would have to get approval from both the DEP, the Army Corps of Engineers, and then the town of Waterford. So it is a lengthy process that if the coastal jurisdiction said that we could put a fence up there, and then all of a sudden the members this summer voted that they wanted a fence, it would still take approximately 6 to 9 months to get all the permits intact before we could actually do anything anyway. And then I think lastly on the capital expenditures was some new gate for the parking lot, which would have the option of being automated later on if we wanted it to be.
John, thank you so much for a detailed explanation. It helps a lot.
Yes.
I think another,
Do you have another question,
good
Dan?
question. Dan has his hand raised, but something that we could do is, I think there's a question of when is this money planning on being expended? Something like the bridge replacement load study.
Mhm.
In my mind, if if it's approved, it should happen sooner than later. There's, a liability associated to that. That would probably be moved forward with immediately. I don't know. I'd have to check if the price of that is directly tied to the price of the replacement study. The replacement study is something that is nice to know and vital that we know, but not necessarily something with liability tied to it. The trenching, as John said, is something that's time sensitive and an immediate opportunity with the state planning on repaving their lot. They're not going to let us saw cut a lot they just paved. So that's something that we feel could be important to do sooner than later, and it gives us more options for the future. The cost of people is our largest expense, and while it is nice to have someone down there on busy weekends to say hello and chat with, every person we employ kind of adds to that biggest piece of our pie. And there's also an issue of access for our members who need access, who aren't able to get through the walking path, who want to come in after hours, and securing that gate. So in the future, if there's an electronic gate, that could allow the parking lot to be secured so that people who are not members are not able to get in with their cars, but members would be able to use it and access it both after hours and in the shoulder seasons, if you will.
And it saves money in the long run on our payroll also.
Yeah, there's a payback.
That we'll have to hire to monitor the parking lot.
Dan, did you have a question? No? Okay. He might come back. I think Susan, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say that when new member fees were initiated and the practice of putting that money aside for capital improvements, it's in the minutes in the past several times that it says it has to be approved by the membership, whatever the capital improvement is. So that kind of ties into Pat's question. I don't know how it ties into this budget, but it's been talked about and we have backup on that. It's not a bylaws, but it's a decision that was made by the membership and confirmed several times.
Okay, great.
That's a good point.
I apologize. I had my headset on why I couldn't unmute. I think that's but I think a lot of this is all new to a degree. Like, we're learning a new system based on the bylaw changes. And I think, one of the things I wanted to say is I was overwhelmed yet impressed with the level of detail and
someone has a TV on in the background.
Is it me?
Yes, it's true.
Is that your mother?
she's gonna, I promise. But
Anyways, no problem.
I guess what I was saying is, like, I look at this budget and I'm intimidated yet impressed, and for kind of educating us on the fact that, hey, we're budgeting this item for running electricity or quote unquote trenching, because I think I heard you say that it's going to be 5 years before we could even propose or think of doing that. So it's very thoughtful. I think that that's a really great thing. I guess my concern is that I'm looking at this budget as intimidating and large, and I'm voting on one thing. And I hear you say that there's the opportunity for people to call a meeting for 15 members to question something or talk about something, etc. At the end of the day, what happens? I want to vote for the budget because I want us to be successful, but my concern is that I do have some angst about some of the bigger items that are in there. So what happens if the budget gets voted and approved, and how do we navigate some concerns that people might have versus if we vote against this budget and it gets voted down, are we, pardon my turn, up shit's creek for being able to operate as a beach?
Right. Okay. So that's a good question. Unfortunately, the treasurer and the chair of the finance committee, David Lewis, isn't on tonight. He would be a good person to shed some light on what at least his perception of that is. I don't know that that'll be distributed before the vote, but I can speak to, the fact that this budget process was certainly not perfect. It was written into our bylaws. This is the first year of the new process. I certainly have seen a couple issues with it. There's a long notice for people to consider whether they like it or not, to ask questions, whether they like it or not. We got an email from a member today that says if it's voted down, how does the board know what people voted against? And, that's definitely a problem. There also wasn't much time for an iterative process between a budget being proposed and the members voting. The 30-day clock, as written in our bylaws, almost was started, and that kind of finalizes it. As far as voting for the budget, we have gotten input from the attorney about what would happen if the budget is voted down. And if the budget is voted down, then as a board, we are still allowed to assess fees in line with how they were assessed last year. So a $350 assessment. We would allow it to be have emergency spending. So things that are going to cause irreparable harm to the beach, we are allowed to spend money on. Taxes, insurance, I think would fall into that category. Anything discretionary, anything extra, we would be forced to, either put groups of or individual expenses forward to the membership for a vote. So we would have to, kind of go back to the drawing board and either do an entirely new budget, or we would have to do individual votes on things. We could, you look at the budget and look at it. So if it's an emergency, if it has to be done to protect the beach, to protect our safety, then that is something that we're able to do. But beyond that, everything would need to be considered by the membership and voted on by the membership if we want to go above and beyond any of those expenses.
Go ahead, Matt.
Charlie, excuse me, could I ask everybody to please unmute unless they're speaking, because the artifact is tremendous.
Okay. I just muted everyone.
Thank you.
Annie and John, you can unmute yourselves. I don't know how she said thank you. Anyways, you can unmute yourself if you want to talk. You can still
No,
raise your
I'll
hand.
unmute when it's ready. Yeah.
So is that clear on the budget? I think that the process certainly wasn't perfect, and the board put the budget forward as proposed by the finance committee, and there were a couple adjustments made. It's certainly a large document. It certainly contains a lot, and this will become the template moving forward for future budgets. One of the things in the bylaws is that if the budget does not pass, it reverts to the previous budget approved by the membership. In this first year, we don't have a previous budget approved by the membership. So that is why we would need to bring individual expenses forward to the membership, or propose an entirely new budget to be approved by the membership. And then that would become the template. Are there any other questions about the budget or the vote for the budget?
I guess my biggest concern about the budget, quite frankly, is a newfound Sorry, my daughter's playing with her slinky as well. I don't want my mother upset about random noise in the background.
I love when the kids make noise.
Oh, she's cute too, but we won't change the camera. My biggest concern, just to put myself on blast here, is I was on the board for a number of years, and we never once had to consult with an attorney or use legal expenses. I understand the rationale behind it, and I get it. But from what I understand in attending every membership meeting for the past however many 8-10 years, is that we approved a budgeted item for the bylaw. And I think that's a justifiable expense because we're creating a legal document. In the last meeting, we talked about the fact that there was some, I think the term used was corporate governance or something along those lines. Is there an update as to how much money year to date has been spent on legal and what items are being consulted with an attorney on other than the bylaws items that have already been approved? I know they're in this budget to be approved, but it seems like we're already using an attorney for things that haven't been previously approved for. And I personally didn't think that $6,000 for the bylaws was justifiable anyways. Apparently it's fine. Like the membership voted and the membership as a whole wins. And I value that democracy. That's, where are we year to date and what is it being for other than the bylaw?
I'm trying to look that up now. I don't have one invoice that covers everything. You know, there have definitely been expected expenses related to the bylaws. You know, I think having the attorney prepare for a call was significant. The other expenses or the questions that have been sent to the attorney that I should say I've been trying my hardest to control, center mainly around you know, power and authority and corporate governance and kind of who has the right to do what and how a board should operate and how a board should work together and how a board should represent the membership.
So why in 75 years do we now have to pay an attorney to understand that? I mean, we were a community.
Saying that we haven't ever had an attorney before is not accurate. We have in the past, certainly around bylaws times. I had a lot of, you know, old meeting minutes that will eventually be posting the website when we have a secure website that, you know, the attorney over the years when we were buying the Ficini part of the beach, you know, we had an attorney. We had $10,000 legal fees back in the late 90s. You know, I will say that, you know, a personal point of emphasis of mine and has been to try to, at the very least, streamline the communications with the attorney. And if things are not immediately necessary, to try to do as much within our board and within our committees as possible before bringing things to her. You know, some situations have come up where we felt that in the society we live in, that an immediate response was necessary, where, you know, we did not want to be operating in a way or that was not in line with laws or best practices of how a board should operate. So I think that, you know, that's information that, you know, can be shared with the membership. Everyone has a right to see that stuff. And, you know, except for a couple exceptions, you know, the ideas put forth by the attorney are also, I think, able to be shared with the membership. And I know that that's something that people have definitely had concern over. And I can say that it's been heard, you know, as we are growing, into the role, it hasn't been easy, and situations have come up. So I'm not really sure how to answer your question, Dan. I think that, it's not like we've spent the full $6,000 of bylaws so far. I think that the actual amount is closer to 2,000 or maybe $2,300 on strictly bylaws related matters, which I think is probably in line with what we expected. These first couple revisions were meant to be easy. And, obviously having her appear live on a meeting and having her review documents, and there's some work that goes in that will pay more dividends later with not, having her time spent again. And then, the remainder of the bylaws legal budget was really meant for the attorney to weigh in when we get into those tricky issues of associate members and transfer of membership that need to be addressed. There's certainly needs. And, I think when we get into the next portion of this meeting and we talk about the bylaws, we can get a better sense of where we are now with the current proposed revisions. And, I'll highlight the bylaw committee chair people, and they can kind of reassure everyone as to where that process is going. One thing I can say is that, I said at the beginning of the meeting, I've been extremely impressed with everyone's participation in the off season. I know that I never thought about Pleasure Beach business this much in the off season in my life before. I can't imagine most of you have, but it's been a very democratic process. We've tried to put multiple layers of participation in place. We've received letters from members that we've posted to the website. The board or board members have responded. We've had these town halls. We plan on continuing to have this style of meeting so that people can have an opportunity to just have a candid conversation like we're having right now.
I would like to concur with Charles. I know when the members look at the legal expenses, their eyebrows probably go up. And bottom line is that the world we live in today is completely different than it might have been even 5 years ago. Certainly 75, 50 years ago. And as far as bylaws go, there are certain compliances that we need to comply with, being nonprofit, a lot, with the state statutes. But I don't believe anyone on the board has used extra funds for legal advice, but it's a completely different world out there today. Do I like it? No. I don't think anyone does. So I understand people's concerns about the money that's spent, but in running the beach, it's part of the what we have to contend with today.
So just to put on the record, my concern was not about the expenses that are going towards the bylaws that was voted on by the association. And
Yes.
that's justified. My concern is all of a sudden there's this new big line item that has not been approved before. Charlie, I respect what you're saying about $10,000 to buy the beach. That's a justifiable legal expense, just like the bylaws is. My concern is that now we have this open line of communication to an attorney that's going to rack up an expense that has not been discussed or approved by the association. But what I hear Charlie saying is that it's anything that's done by the board is public information to the membership. And if you're saying that the level of transparency that has been completely expounded and applauded by you guys so far year to date, if that's going to expand to also include whatever has been consulted with on an attorney level that we're not privy to, I fully take that as a great response, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely say from my perspective, the president really doesn't have much autonomous power anymore, which is probably a good thing, because who knows what I might do. But you know, I view my role as really an intermediary between the membership and the board. You know, I need to make sure that the membership is heard. I need to make sure the board is hearing, and then the board makes decisions, and I need to make sure that those decisions are being carried out. And with members and prospective members and other entities, you know, there are legal implications in how we act and what we do. And you know, I think that Attorney Marion is very reasonable with how she responds to things. Time and time again, I've told her that, you know, my goal is to control legal expenses, and she's respectful of that. But she has been a really valuable resource for me and for us when needed. You know, one thing that we are working on, we didn't get to it in our last board meeting, is just kind of defining a policy on how and when people are allowed to reach out to the attorney. And the general guidelines I got from Attorney Marion are, you know, board members and committee chairs should be allowed to communicate with the attorney about any legal implications of how they're doing their job. All of those emails, you know, are meant to have me CC'd on them, just so that, you know, things aren't getting out of control. And you know, board issues and things like that, you know, in general, she said that the president should be copied on it and kind of say yes or no, or respond to this and put these off the later. Or, you know, sometimes when we've had a batch of questions, I've said, okay, Catherine, I'm sorry, Attorney Marion, you know, let's focus on these two and hold these off till later. And she's worked with us really well on that. As far as, you know, if someone feels that I'm doing something that is grossly negligent or against my fiduciary duties to the beach, then the backup rule is they should copy John King, the vice president, on that email, and he can say, yeah, we should definitely talk about this. And that's kind of the general process we have. You know, I will say that I think that tensions were high coming out of 2020. And, you know, I hope that we can just kind of calm down. I really believe that we have a lot of really talented people in our organization, and that the committee chairs, the people who want to volunteer, they're there because they're talented and they can do the job. We give them directives, and I think that we can definitely get better at doing work internally, but there are definitely some things that, you know, need the attorney's review. So learning how to better put those things forward is something that I can say we're working on, and I feel like we've made progress on.
I agree. We've all learned as we've gone along. Tough road, but we're coming out to be better for it. So thank you, Charles.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the thank you to Charles and whoever. I think you're doing a great job, and I applaud the transparency that's been going on as far as the information you're sending, and also just the technical aspect of running these meetings and the website and the information that's up there and the stuff on YouTube. I'm not sure, Charlie, if that's how much of that has fallen to you or not, but whoever is doing that, they're doing a great job.
Well, I'd like to add, yes, he's
around 100.
doing a great job, but I also have to give accolades to the rest of the board. This, I'm going to laugh at this one, but we love our jobs, but it's an everyday endeavor. So I thank you for your thoughts. We're all working together for the betterment of the membership.
And when you see Leah and my sons around the beach this summer, thank them for not leaving me, spending so much time on this stuff. You know, they're really the ones I think who suffer the most.
Charles, I think I'm gonna elaborate on that, is every one of our families get annoyed, but they allow us to do our job. So thank you to our families.
All right. So I think that we're pretty clear on the budget. In the past, you know, with the first bylaws meeting, I was able to have a temp that works for me, but he was able to kind of chop up the video and put up clips. So maybe I'll do something similar here. We've had kind of 2 or 3 distinct conversations so far. So, you know, I'll definitely get this stuff up on the YouTube channel as soon as possible. I don't know that I'll be able to get it done before the vote, but it'll be there for perpetuity. And you know, just kind of moving forward, you know, everyone participating, everyone has a voice, and you know, that's kind of the point of what we're doing. We're all learning it together. I think we can get into the bylaws right now. Does anyone have any questions, or does the oh, I see someone unmuted themselves. Would you ladies like to say something?
I was just preparing in case there are questions.
Oh, okay.
We just want to encourage
So this
everyone.
Saturday.
We want to just encourage everyone to vote, you know, and participate as you are and have been all along. We really do appreciate the off-season involvement.
And if you have any questions about any of the items, we'll try and answer it. I know there's been a lot of confusion and misconceptions about the grandfather original boundaries clause. And so we can
Looks
try
like
our
Dan has a
best to
question,
answer
possibly.
those questions.
Dan, you have a question?
Admittedly, I didn't take a lot of time until this week to really dive in and really understand the bylaw changes. And once I did, I felt incredibly comfortable with the intent. I guess my question is I feel like there's been either something that's changed or not communicated the right way. And that's not taking away from the transparency that I applaud. I just feel like there hasn't been the opportunity to discuss it. Last year, there was so much talk from the board about how we're hitting and coming up on and hitting for the first time in 75 years a 200 member cap. Now some information that's being, so I personally I support the bylaw changes, but then there's some context about it that I feel like has changed, that is now basically stating that there's not any longer a 200 member cap because of some legal like jargon, some legal interpretation. That's the word I'm looking for. Legal interpretation of the fact that there's a couple of different possible boundaries. And so I feel I just want to understand what I'm voting for is I also just personally aside, we showed up at the beach, started opening our cottage, and we heard pretty quickly that there's some some person on the wait list that's threatening to sue the association because of this interpretation, this, that, the other thing. And we're like, we're just trying to put screens in right now, but we don't understand all of this. So can someone fill me in on this 200 member cap and what this means for what we're voting on Saturday?
Right.
I also had a question on that. It's kind of a follow-up to that. I was wondering when the 200 cap was put in place and what it was a result of. Did we do an ecological study or to find out what the beach could handle? That's my 2-part question. When and why?
May I ask
who
who was just speaking?
That was April DiPaulina.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry, it was me, April.
Hi, April. Go ahead.
So yeah, that's.
I can talk? Yeah. Oh, okay. I know that the clause that we're speaking of, the grandfather original boundaries, was put in 1999 bylaws, which are the ones we're still amending and working on and changing. So it's been there over 20 years, but I think nobody paid attention to it until we reached 200. And all of a sudden we started looking at that language and what it meant. And there's been two propositions of what the original boundaries might be. The oldest ones are the town of Waterford, and that comes from 1949 bylaws. And some people feel, though, it was really meant to be the 1974 bylaws. And that also makes sense. As we find more documents from the past, maybe we'll be able to clarify it better, like in minutes and things like that. But it doesn't really matter. What that language does is you have a 200 maximum, and it provides an exception with no limit as to how many people it might apply. It creates an exception so that people who live in the original boundaries, they are permitted to join as members. And it's almost over, and it is over and above the 200, and there's no limits on that. So how has one person been able to change it? The person this year challenged us more or less legally using that language and saying, I shouldn't be, I just purchased a house, I shouldn't be on a wait list. I have a right to be a member right now. And she didn't care which set of boundaries you used because her house was in both. Mm-hmm. Well, everybody's house is in the 1949, but she challenged us, and it would be very hard for us to defend ourselves and say, no, you have to get in back of the wait list. And the attorney said, really, you have to honor this. It's there in our bylaws in black and white. And we would be very hard pressed to argue against it and have a chance of winning. And we might invite several lawsuits in the process. So if we're lucky, well, I shouldn't say lucky. If it works out that this language goes away on the vote, it'll go away immediately, and nobody will be able to use it as access to more or for membership of above and beyond. It'll now be 220 probably, or 215. They won't be able to use it.
And I'd just like to add.
Thank you, Susan. Let me. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I was just going to add to that. Thank you, Charlie. That if you are able to see any part of the first meeting on February 10th, when we met with Attorney Marion, or the snippets that Charlie has posted, so there are video snippets, you'll see that or hear that Attorney Marion addressed this specific issue of the vague language, which is why we have a bylaws committee in the first place, because as our membership grows and as life changes and circumstance changes, each year our organization goes on, our bylaws will need to address the current issues, which is why it's so important that membership participates in this process. And that, as we did in this over the winter, over the late fall and through the winter, as a follow-up to the end of the 2020 season, we were addressing those topics, these particular topics that need our attention immediately, with the hope that we would not be challenged by this. Of course, these are the recommendations that we present to you, and then it's the membership who has the voice. You are all the ones who get to say, what does our organization become? What do we want? That's why we vote.
I'd like to add something to that. As the person that gets all the requests for the waiting list, I am not sure that all people on the waiting list have made that statement that they will take it to a legal level, but all of the people now on the waiting list are taking advantage of this situation. I've had two or three people today asking the same question. So with that in mind, it's very difficult to sort of maneuver the waters here. And I think that we really need to look at where, as Sarah said, where are we going with this?
Thank you, Annie. Yeah, I just like to jump in. Yeah, I think that if anyone hasn't read it, the bylaws committee posted a letter on the website which kind of describes it. I think, to paraphrase a part that I thought was really good was that the current language creates an unlimited number of
Right.
exceptions to our membership cap. To paraphrase Attorney Marion's language, is it takes control of the number of members away from the membership, away from us. So, as of this morning, when membership opens, I think we're going to have 216 members in the upcoming season, unless people drop out. And to my understanding, that number can increase until Saturday and beyond Saturday, if people express written interest in joining the beach while the current bylaws are in force. So there's a big risk here. I think, to go to April's question just quickly, in the past, the conversations in the minutes and the bylaw about the bylaws of membership, it was always assessment fees are increasing. How do we keep them in line? Let's recruit new members. Let's send out postcards. When a house sells, let's bring them a fruit basket and ask them to please join the beach. And now we're at a place where we're like, okay, well, we have 200. I don't know that number was based on a study. I think it was probably based on the best thought of our current board. I know that back in 1998 and the 90s, it seems like the purchase of the Ficini Beach was a bigger issue than this bylaws language. And to echo what Susan said, we weren't near the cap. We were in the 150, 160 range. And I don't know that people really thought long and hard about the 200 number. So with that being said, I don't know that 220 is bad versus 200, but I have a suspicion that 250 might be. And if we want 250, then everyone might only be able to have 4 or 5 or 6 badges. And but it's not our choice right now. And that's kind of the issue. Okay, there's a question in the chat, but that's it. I don't need to talk anymore. Residents reside or use many members' own properties.
Okay, so do you see this question about?
Okay. Lori Schleck asked a question in the chat, which I think is good.
Oh no.
About original boundaries, 10-year rules use the term residence and reside. Many members own properties but have legal residence outside of the boundaries. Is residence ownership? Is residence renters? Can you describe what is meant by residence in the bylaws? Yes. So owning a lot in the current boundaries makes you eligible to be a member of Pleasure Beach. It could be a lot with no house on it, of which in the current boundaries that were enacted in 1999.
760 lots, isn't it, Charlie?
Well, no, I think it's not including Great Neck. It's 740 or 750 lots. There's 650 houses. And the 1974 boundaries even have 550 houses in them. So whatever boundaries are considered, there's that 200 member cap right now means nothing. It does not limit membership to 200. I think, now that we're over 200, we either need to wait or we need to address it. We need to pay for a study. I think that some of the confusion, just to kind of present both sides of the coin, has been around long-term members. People have been members for 2, 3, 4 generations, and thinking that if the grandfather clause is deleted, they lose some sort of right. Right now, it's kind of an interesting issue. So we now know that the practice of how Pleasure Beach has operated for 74 years, of through inheritance, a death of the member, the house is passed down, the membership has always gone along, no questions asked. As we've looked into the state statutes and learned more, we now know that that's simply not the case. There's no legal backing for transfer of a membership upon sale of a property or estate planning or inheritance. So that's something that the membership needs to weigh in on, and the bylaw committee, I believe, is ready to focus on that immediately. But the other side of it is that right now, if the grandfather clause for the original boundaries does not go away, and someone sells their house or passes it down to a family member, yes, that will definitely give the next person the right to join the beach. They will have to pay a new member fee because we don't have transfer of membership in our bylaws. But it'll also allow every single one of their neighbors and every single other person on every single street within the boundaries to join the beach. So it's not an exception that protects the rights of members. It's an exception that allows an unlimited, to a certain extent, number of members.
And the argument can be made that the original boundaries go back to the 1949 boundaries. And the attorney said we'd be hard pressed to defend against that. But the 1949 boundaries say the town of Waterford. So if people get wind of that, or they could just start creating arguments that they should be members. And there's very little we can do if this language stays in there. I mean, that would be a disaster.
Is there a way to clarify that town of Waterford versus the more recent set of boundaries? I mean, according to my mother, the narrower set of boundaries was voted on, or maybe not voted on, but it was discussed in part of the new, that it was discussed as being, or adopted, I guess I should say.
As the original, I think.
Yes.
No.
That's a really good question. As you read,
the narrower set that's not the town of Waterford. That it's
Right.
1974.
I thought that had been adopted that way.
So it was, and if you read the progression of Article 2 over the years from 1949 until the present, you see how it changes. And if you follow that progression, in 1999, the 200 member cap, the grandfather clause for the original boundaries were both added. And then also Lamphir, Colonial, Great Neck, all the way up shore were also added. So it makes sense that the original boundaries referred to during those changes would be the narrower 1974 boundaries. However, I don't think we had a lawyer review our bylaws back then. And we passed it and we said the original boundaries. And the original geographic fence of an eligible Pleasure Beach member, as far as we can tell, we do not have a copy of our bylaws from 1946 that I've seen. If anyone does, please share it. The whole town of Waterford was the original eligibility. So the first time boundaries is mentioned, I believe, is in 1983. But our lawyer has said that with a good enough legal challenge, you'd be hard pressed under the current bylaws to disallow anyone within the town of Waterford from joining Pleasure Beach.
Because it hinges on the word.
I hate to say that.
Correct.
But I'd also like to
Yes.
just follow up on Lori's question, because it seems that she's also focusing on what the 10-year rule does currently as the way it is written. And what that does is allow people who have been members for 10 years or more to actually leave their residence here, to sell their residence, to move away, but still maintain their beach membership. So the question about residence and reside, the way the current bylaw is written, allows anyone who has been a member for over 10 years to sell their residence and still hold their membership. So this is, again, is vague language. And so it's an excellent question about this discrepancy between residence and reside. There also are other layers to that could be debated or discussed about people who own residences and rent. That's another topic. If you own your residence and you choose to rent it, then you are the person who gets to vote. And if you don't want to vote, you can have a proxy. But that's another topic. In regard to the 10-year rule, it specifically allows in this vague language for people to leave, no longer own a residence within the boundaries, and yet still hold on to their membership.
And we have one new one this year that's already using that language for a 10-year rule membership. Which just means that out of if we were at 200, it just means that one spot is now held by someone who lives wherever they want to live.
Yes,
Okay.
and Laura, to answer your question, right now, for a renter to be a member, there may be some renters who are grandfathered in. They are members until they choose not to be. Right now, for a renter to be a member, they have to have the owner, the person on the deed, apply for membership and work out their own arrangement with the new member fee and with the annual assessments. If that owner decided that they no longer wanted a Pleasure Beach membership, that renter wouldn't really have much right, because the actual membership is in the name of whoever owns the house. What Sarah referred to as the proxy is there are undirected proxies. They're on the website, and every year the owner of the house could sign one and write the renter's name on it, and effectively that gives the renter voting rights and the similar rights to that of a member for that calendar year.
I don't know if you can hear me. This is Bob Schleck. I was the one who typed in the question on behalf of my wife. But that residents reside need clarification because somebody could poke a hole in that.
We didn't hear the last part of that statement.
Residents and reside, you can poke holes in that. So you have to be clear, or at least define it somewhere, what you mean by that.
I think it's already been done 2 years ago when we went down to limiting one vote per house. And the person who could vote had to be a property owner. We, in doing that vote and amendment that year, we eliminated renters being allowed just directly to have a membership. So it is just property owners and one per property.
Yeah, I'm looking for that equivalent, the definition. If it's in there, then I'll go find it. But
okay, yeah, I could look too and help you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the bylaws are posted on the website under governance and bylaws. And
then the comment from Carol to just agree that yes, there is a multi-level plan among the bylaws committee in terms of what to specifically address next. transfer of membership is next, and then this discussion about the boundaries as well. So one of the core reasons why it was so important that we started in the winter was so that we could engage the membership in these discussions early, because it gets to be too much if we're trying to do all of it. In fact, it's impossible to do that. So by taking the highest priority issues and addressing them and discussing them the way we are, then going to a vote, then we can move on to the next phase.
I also want to jump back to Mr. Schleck's comment about the inconsistency. So the way that we've approached these bylaws has been piecemeal since 1949. For example, the 1974 clause, if you watch the YouTube videos, it is literally a relic in the document. It doesn't serve anyone. It serves no purpose. From time to time, bylaws just become obsolete, and it needs to be removed. And that's just a great example of how the document has evolved over time, not holistically, but in pieces. So if you are looking on the website and you go to the bylaws, Article 13, Section 3 talks about voting rights. And when you see this language, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in these bylaws, that is how you update a rule that we know could have inconsistencies other places in the document. So it says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in these bylaws, there shall be one vote per assessed household to be exercised by the registered owner or owners acting jointly, or in the case of an entity owner, by its legally designated representative. So the legalese behind that is that this is the controlling language in our document for voting. And those other inconsistencies of residence and stuff like that are things that, yes, are confusing and probably should be cleaned up.
I accept that. Thank you. To follow on, what's the population of, or the number of people who are currently candidates to be affected by this? Do we have any members that are in the 1974 range?
No.
Okay. Do we have any members that are in the, well, I'm sorry, I'll track the next statement. Okay, I'm fine. Thank you.
Yeah, every member is in the original boundaries. And I think something like 70 or 80% of our members have been members for 10 or more years.
Sorry, just to back up for a second. So you said every member is within the original boundaries. Sorry to circle back, but is that the Waterford, or is that the narrower set adopted later?
Oh, well, no, in Waterford.
We do have
100% are in Waterford, and you probably have about 75% to 80% that are in the 74 boundaries.
We have one member that is right now is out of the 74 boundaries. And after speaking to her, and this was years ago, apparently there were people within the boundaries, or whoever it was running the beach association, were looking for new members, and were soliciting new members. And this person was solicited, took a membership, and is still within our membership.
And so
Does that answer the question?
that person is grandfathered, is that correct?
Yes, of course. Yes.
So it seems that one of the things that has to be clarified in whatever vote is going to occur here is that the boundaries are the 1974 boundaries.
No, so we want maybe the boundaries, we intend it for the boundaries to be the 1974 boundaries. As the bylaws are currently written and being interpreted, the Um, the attorney believes someone could make the case that the entire town of Waterford
Is
is the
still,
original boundaries.
okay.
Um,
Well, that was my question. So why isn't there an official vote on making the 1974 boundaries the boundaries?
well, because we have a set of 1999 boundaries. So the vote is to remove this language, which is confusing. The future work of the bylaws committee and of the membership is to write the rules the way that we as a membership want them. So the bylaws are only as permanent as 2/3 of the membership decide that they should be. Um, and we have the ability to change anything within the document.
And then vote on it, of course.
And in the next phase, there's 3 topics: associate members, boundaries. We're going to discuss boundaries. Should we bring them in or modify them and talk about it, or label what is we can accept the 1974 as the original. We can do what we want, but we have to address it and be clear. This language is very vague. And then of course, we're going to talk about transfer of membership, how you might inherit or pass on a membership with a property.
And also in boundaries, like, should there be a smaller area, a smaller ring closer to the beach, where anyone who moves in at any time can always become a member? Or does the membership not want that? And all of those decisions require a bylaw change, which requires a 30-day notice and requires an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the membership and over 50% of the membership participating in that vote. So there's a much higher onus on changing a bylaw. So it's not something that can just happen because we want it to. It takes, much more than the people on this call. It takes at least 101 votes. When we have 216 members, it'll take at least 109 votes, of which, what is that?
72?
72 would be affirmative, so that's how it works.
And as far as the when we talk about the original boundaries being the entire town of Waterford, there are no legal documents at this point that we can find that state that. I think where this thought process came about is sort of, I guess I'm going to say hearsay, but there is no black and white document that states it.
Yes, there
Actually,
is.
there is.
Yes.
There is.
We have a copy of the 1949, and it's clear in there that they intended it to be everybody in the town of Waterford.
So why have we not, when was this document brought forth?
I brought it forth last fall to the board.
The
one of our
1949
members
boundaries say that
had
anyone who resides, pays taxes in, or something else within the town of Waterford is eligible for membership.
Yes. So I'll rescind what I just said.
We can also share all of these old documents. One of the issues with being ultra transparent and ultra collaborative is that our website right now is completely public. So the YouTube videos, they're public. The bylaws are public. The meeting minutes are public. And, people who have a computer and an interest in joining Pleasure Beach, whether they're nudged there by their neighbors or by, someone, the information's out there. When we get our new website, we will have a portal that everyone can sign into. And that'll be a much better place for us to post anything that's potentially sensitive. Our annual budget, the voting will happen through the portal. We'll be able to post old documents. I don't feel comfortable putting the attorney's legal decisions on our current website. I could share them. We could share them with individuals who want to see them. But you know, I'm also not going to post the videos of our board meetings on the public website. You know, that's not fully public information. It's public if you're a member of the association. So, you know, the older versions of the bylaws, it's a great exercise. If you've read the current bylaws, kudos to you. Thank you. If you've read the 99 and the 91 and the 83 and the 74 and the 49, you know, then you're up to speed. And one of the directives that was given to the bylaws committee that I believe they're working on is to create kind of a summary of the changes over the years. So Article 2 membership has changes in almost every every time the bylaws have changed, there's been an adjustment there. So that's always been something at the front of people's minds. And other parts of the document have also changed throughout the years.
Yes, I guess in my thinking, I was thinking we were incorporated in 1946, and I was thinking about that, those documents. Where were the bylaws? So excuse me for making that statement.
Right. The copy of our 1949 bylaws that we have, it says amended in 1949, which implies there's a previous version.
Of course, yes.
In 1946.
Yep.
And I have not seen a copy of it. I don't think Barbara Keck has a copy of it. Someone who has been a member since 1946, or their family has, you know, maybe back in some old scrapbook might have a copy of it. There are these little pamphlets, like little billfolds almost. So, you know, we would love to have a copy of that. You know, back then, only the articles of incorporation were needed to be filed with the state. So it's not like there's a public record of it somewhere.
Right. Yep, I get it.
But Bill and Susan, your mother wrote, when she wrote the memoirs of Pleasure Beach with another former member, she says that it was the town of Waterford and then it was brought in 1974. She refers to that fact in their book.
She's the one who got us into this problem then, huh?
Oh my gosh.
No, not at all.
No.
No, but again, it seems to me that if they were brought in, they were brought in. I wonder if it's possibly the lawyer that's sort of, you know, bringing up all this potential trouble, where it seems evident to most of us that they were brought in and narrowed.
In a court of law, though, if the question is, it depends on what the meaning of original is, then that's where the argument lies.
Yeah. So clearly we have to clarify that.
Correct.
Or remove the word original.
Yes.
And then
which is proposed.
Decide what we want to do moving forward.
Charlie, I just wanted to comment on Carol's statement about the public website. I believe I have heard that other beach associations or private clubs that have websites do not allow the public to enter the website. You actually have to be a member to enter the website. So I didn't know if that was something that has been discussed by the board.
That is something that has been discussed.
Yes, we have.
Of leaving
The
certain
problem with
things.
that is that there are those of us who are quasi members who then would not be, you know, if you go to the one email, one house rule, it's really difficult for a family like ours where.
Well, what I mean is that if you knew a member or had a family member who's a member, there's a, you know, password or something that they can share with you. I mean, there's only so much locking that can be done these days, but at least it's not just a quick Google search on a smartphone.
And just like the voting, every member has there's a voting member listed on your membership. There's a registered email address. So when the new website is published, the idea is that that registered email address is the username for all 200, 220 members. And they would have a password that the first time they log in, they have to change.
Yes, yep.
You would be able to share that with your family members.
Okay.
I think that, depending on what we're posting there, we'd probably want to, put some at least expectations around who that information is shared with. But it will be a really great way both to communicate, maybe have like some sort of message board to post surveys, to post the voting, to discuss these issues in a public forum amongst ourselves that isn't visible to every single person on the internet.
Good, thank you, Charlie. Yeah.
Good idea.
Are there so up in the chat I posted the 4 bylaw amendments by their kind of just slang names, their layperson's names. There's the 1974 clause, which the lawyer said doesn't affect anyone. There's the 10-year rule, which Sarah says allows members who are members for 10 years with 2 letters of recommendation to remain members if they move outside of the boundaries. So there's that boundary issue again. There's the grandfather clause up over and above the 200 member cap for anyone within the original boundaries. And then the 4th one is removing the dates from Article 2, referring to Article 7, dues and assessments, and changing those dates to move them forward. Currently, I think it was June, July, September, July, August, September, when dues were due, delinquent, and membership would cease. And those dates have just been moved up, to kind of be more in line with how we do business and how we incur expenses. So if there are any other questions on any of these bylaw amendments, let's try to tackle those now. And then, it's only 8:30. If, maybe we could just have a brief discussion about, what people are generally feeling about some of these issues that the bylaws committee raised for future discussion, assuming, whatever passes and doesn't pass is going to happen on Saturday. We'll know by Saturday afternoon or Saturday night where we stand. And then, the next phase will be to use surveys and to use more of this stuff to engage the membership and decide on the actual issues that we thought were going to be much more contentious. So are there any other questions on the bylaw amendments as proposed by the bylaw committee and put forth by the board? Hands, comments? No. Okay. Susan and Sarah, you said that the 3 things that your committee is going to focus on next are associate member, boundaries, and transfer of membership?
Yes.
Yes.
And if those are all resolved and approved by the membership, whatever changes we determine, that will pretty much do it for Article 2 and membership. Anything else will be minor or small. That whole article, which is the hardest one really to get a consensus on, will be done. But getting there's not going to be easy.
And the idea is that the bylaws committee, their job is to listen to the membership, to poll the membership, and to try to get a pulse of what the majority of people want or what's in the best interest of the association. We want to define in lay terms what we want our rules to be. And then at that point, I think that's when we turn it over to the attorney and we say, check this, make it legal. Did we do it right? Any state statute or other language that's required, we need you to adjust and tweak it and make sure it's consistent. And then that is what would be put forth for a vote.
I have a question for the bylaw committee. Seeing that the associate member item is in the bylaws, how do we deal with that this year?
It's there because the language for associate members has been in our bylaws for a long time, not the whole entire history
Yes,
going back to
yes.
49, but it's been there a lot.
Yeah.
And at one point they were allowed to vote. That was added, and we have voted against that now, and they cannot vote because
Right.
it was a practice that was abused. I think my personal opinion is it's okay to leave that language there, but I personally don't think it should be in the budget. I don't think we should be charging any fees for it because the framework of who an associate member is there, like you have to be a member of an assessed household, you will have to pay dues. But we still don't know who is an associate member, who can be one, and we don't know what they get, what privileges or what rights they'll be given. Give them what's the reason to pay anything for something that we don't know what it is right now?
I agree with what you're saying, but the reality is it's in black and white. And my question is, we need to discuss how we're going to deal with this because I am getting ready to start doing all our.
Well, I think the question is, like, the bylaws say associate members pay dues. So the finance committee and the treasurer have put in a fee to be an associate member. So the question is, why would you be an associate member?
I agree with that,
That sounds
but right now we can't ask that question. What I'm trying to say is, and we can discuss this maybe in a bit, but the bottom line is it is there, it's evident, it is in black and white, and at this point we need to abide by what is on in the black and white.
But if someone who is not the assessed member chooses not to be an associate member, but they have a badge, there's no clear distinction right now as to what they would not be able to do, or any rights they are given over someone else.
So there again, I say, what do we do with it this year? Now, we don't have to belabor it tonight at 8:30, but it is there.
Well, I think that if the conversation continues with the bylaws committee and the membership, and let's say that everyone is in consensus, and by the July business meeting, we have a definition of what an associate member is. As I read the budget and as I understand it, there's nothing stopping people from signing up to be associate members mid-season, maybe when they feel they want to be. Like right now, I know there are people who, like myself, for example, I'm the president. I would sign up to be an associate member because I feel like it's the right thing to do. I don't know how I would feel in a different seat. I would imagine that I might wait to see, why I should do it. I think that there are some people who
I am in agreement
be a member of Pleasure Beach. They've always been a member, and
All I'm saying is I agree with everything that's being said right now in black and white. That is what stands. And I'm not going to belabor the issue. So we have to abide by our bylaws.
Pat, do you want to talk?
Well, there's no requirement to be an associate member. Charlie, like you just
Right.
said, if I were to become an associate member, I would essentially be paying to participate and volunteer my time to do this job. And I'm not sure why anyone would need to do that.
I agree with everything that's being said, but we have to have it available. And
right, and it is. And so that is exactly why it's on the next wave of
it needs
items
to be available on our membership form.
And you may find, just by how many people sign up for it, you may find your answer
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, that's a great, that's great. That's a great, suggestion or a thought.
Pat, do you have something to add?
Sorry. Fran.
Yeah, I'm just interested in how many people right now actually sign up to say they're associate members. Is it a huge number? Is it and what does that have to do with, you pay $25 to be an associate member. Now, does that mean the main member can still get 6 more tickets, 6 more tags? There's so many parts to that don't make sense. And do we have a slot on that, on the, when you pay your dues, is there a slot there now that says I'm an associate member?
Right now, there is not a slot.
So what's the problem then?
I agree with everything that's being said. All I am saying is, abiding by your bylaws, you have to make it available to your
Did we last year?
population. And I think that Susie made a very great suggestion. See how many people decide to use that.
So in 2019, the right to vote was removed from the associate member. In 1991, it was added. So there was a time before 91 when people were associate members and did not vote. And the associate membership, at least to some people, became the practice of, quote, buying a vote. And I think that became the focus of it. So when it was removed in 2019, my understanding is that the board last year said, okay, we're not going to charge an associate member fee this year because there's no point, even though the associate member pays dues was still in the bylaws. So we're reverting back to following the bylaws. You know, as you can see by reading the bylaws, it is very nebulous. There have been suggestions for what an associate member can and can't do. And I think that, you know, those will come into effect at some point this year, probably. And, you know, I think that, you know, that is something that, you know, later this year or next year, a lot of people will know exactly whether or not they want to be an associate member.
I agree with you. Just bringing a point out, but I thank you.
No, you're right. No, so yeah, Annie has the job of creating the membership, and she needs to follow the bylaws. That's her job. So there's a spot for
And that's
associate
where I'm
member.
coming. That's where I'm coming from. But we can discuss this. And until that part of the bylaws is negated, we need to abide by it. But I thank you very much, everyone. I'm very tired, as I'm sure we all are.
Good night.
Good
Does anyone
night.
else have anything they want to add or question?
No, I'm finished. I'm
I'm
sorry.
done. I appreciate it all.
All right. Well, I see a lot of sleep emojis and sneezing. Yeah, thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Please vote if you have not done so already.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Charlie.
And to everyone out there, we are planning to have more town hall get-togethers. I think it's great. So we'll see you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you all for the excellent job you're doing. It's difficult.
And you too, guys.
Thank you. Yep.
And I do have another voting reminder email scheduled to go out, I think at 9:30 or 10 tonight. I'm not really sure when it was. I set them up previously, but anyone who hasn't voted, I know there have been some issues with the email addresses and spam filters. I was reading about it today, and you have to get in touch with your IT department in some cases, which I know I don't have. So The ways to vote are posted on the website. You can vote via this online system we have. It's secure, only one vote per email address that's registered. So that's very secure. It's different than things we tried to do in the past. We spent money on a system that we know is going to work. You have the ability to vote via proxy. An undirected proxy is you give someone a piece of paper and they go vote for you at the meeting. A directed proxy you fill out with how you want to vote on the specific issues. And both of those forms should be turned in before the appropriate meeting on Saturday. And then, of course, you're able to come and vote in person. And weather dependent, we're going to be out in the parking lot. We'll put the chairs out. We'll have hand sanitizer and wipes, and we'll just ask everyone to be orderly and be patient as we distribute ballots. If you vote online, there will not be a ballot waiting for you. If you do not vote online, there will be a ballot waiting for you. If you turn in a proxy, you don't get your ballot. And that's kind of how the process is going to work. So, everyone can vote once. We're hoping to get as close to 200 votes as possible. And, leading up to the meeting on Saturday, I think there'll probably be one more reminder email that goes out, maybe, talking more in detail about those COVID protocols and stuff. But, we ask that everyone just do what we've been doing for the past 13 months, wear a mask, be socially distant, sit with your bubble. And then we are going to try to broadcast it on Zoom, which is going to be tricky. So
We also, to add to that, we could use
right.
we could use another ballot counter, and we can also use some volunteers for check-ins at the table. And you can let any one of us on the board know if you're interested.
And does Pat have one more question?
Pat?
Oh, she just jumped off to a phone call.
Oh, okay. All right, guys.
She's
Thank
leaving you in charge then, Dick.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
See, how do I hang this thing up?
All right, I'll do it for you.